All right, boys and girls, we have a very, very special episode for you. As you know, 2020, new year, hashtag Valiant 2020 already kicking off. A lot of good stuff happening. But before we get into the new, let's take a look back on 2019 and see what was the hottest books, what made it one of the best years for Valiant. We're going to be bringing you our top 5 picks, and then also a couple things, a little special things at the end there. So to get things started, I got to go right into it. Number 5 for me is definitely Incursion. Okay. Now, and here's why. I'm gonna go with the bad first, and then go into the good, because
Okay.
I was really hard for me to like put together why that would be that low on my list, because I love that book. That's man, it's so good. But the only reason that it got the number 5 spot for me is because it was really not, I don't want to say it was overshadowed, but it was very standalone in comparison to all the other stuff that went on last year. If you haven't read it, you should definitely check it out. There was some mention about into it in Dr. Mirage, and basically, I look at it as almost like the Blackest Night of Valiant, almost, if that makes sense. For any Green Lantern fans who might not be familiar with it, definitely was a great story. If you like the Eternal Warrior, seeing him and the current Geomancer's relationship was really awesome. Dr. Mirage and Juan together, bruh. If you want to see why Dr. Mirage has hung around for so long, Incursion is the story that you need to read. That is like one of the, I didn't expect that going into it, to see those two be the standout pair of the story, but it was phenomenal. Shout out to Alex Packnadell and Andy Diggle for that point, for that one. And all right, what did you think? What do you got for your number 5?
It's actually kind of crazy, because I actually have Incursion at number 5 myself. It's like, it's not the obvious choice to kind of kick things off, but it was kind of the event that, it's really exciting, but it really is just a build up to, a big baddie punch 'em up. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun. There's some fan service moments. Man, Dr. Mirage and Wynn was just, oh my God, like that whole cameo, that whole scene. But ultimately, it wasn't consequential enough, I think. And I think it potential to rank, maybe 1, maybe 2, but it just kind of reached that towards the end. I thought maybe it needed another issue or two to kind of flesh out some consequences in the Valiant universe and see where we're going with it. But the art and just how awesome it is, like, it's definitely a great way to start things off. Like, top 5, definitely Incursion. It's kind of when you look back on Valiant 2019 and you want to give somebody something to just jump into and check out kind of how cool they were in 2019. That's a good book to give them, because it's just badass.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And like you said, on all points, it did. I felt like it did need something more, like maybe a little bit more mention in like the Dr. Mirage series when that came out, or like another Eternal Warrior story to follow it up, because I'm going to try to keep it spoiler free, but how it ends with the new status of the Geomancer and the things they had to do, there's so much potential there that hasn't been tapped yet. So that's really kind of, for me, what kept it at number 5, as opposed to being, like you said, like number 2 or number 1, because it definitely was like, when you first read it and you finish the whole thing, you're like, man, Valiant is coming out swinging. Like, they started the year off real hella strong with Incursion.
Yeah.
So
right.
for
Like,
sure.
I love the pacing. It kind of almost is just a countdown to when the Eternal Warrior is gonna, get his hands on this villain, and the ending plays out like that. But it starts to get like really anxious right there, right towards the end. You're like, oh, it's coming. Something big is coming. And I liked that. That was kind of my favorite aspect of the series, and that's kind of what makes me recommend it, because issue 1's a great start, but it just snowballs, and there's so much tension in it, because you kind of know what's coming. You know the Eternal Warrior is gonna get his hands on this villain pretty quick, and uh, it definitely pays off with that. Like they don't hold back whenever it happens. Um, I really enjoyed that they weren't afraid to kind of go there with some of the violence in it, and it worked well. But yeah, I thought maybe it needed another series. I'm sure we're gonna look back on it to the Eternal Warrior now and not look at Incursion and kind of the trajectory it's set for the character. So I am excited for that. I guess I wanted more, and I know that's always a good thing to do with a comic series, but I thought maybe this one needed more within this story. And, you know, it's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, but the good thing is, it's we're talking about Valiant, so sooner or later they'll circle back around to it and it'll pay off. All right, so
Yeah.
for number four, what you got for number four?
Number four, I had to go with Fallen World on number four. And I know that one is
Okay.
gonna rank. That one ranks pretty high on a lot of people's lists I've seen because I mean, let's face it, it's an awesome story. It it does a great job in kicking off the Rise story that we see now that kind of happened in 2019 as well. So they've kind of been busy with it in Fallen World, but I ultimately loved what they did. I know that they've been looking for a way to kind of pick up on this character and continue his story, but this one was really unique. Fallen World just worked, and it was just a lot of fun. I thought there's so many like almost wacky moments, like uh, the dinosaurs and stuff like that, where
Yeah,
it's it's out there, but it's you're having so much fun that you're just like, this is great. I'm having an awesome time reading this, and I just want more. So it's hard not to go with Fallen World. That was one. I don't really need that many consequences because of the nature of the story, and it's a little bit more focused on this character, and it's displaced from time a little bit more, so its impact on the core Valiant universe. I didn't have quite so many expectations going into it, so this was just a great time. And then it did something extra with the character in some exciting ways, so it had to place a little bit higher than Incursion for me. And I think that's mainly because if I'm standing at the shelf looking at all the trades on my library, I'm probably going to pick Fallen World before Incursion just because it's so fun. And,
yeah,
that's just kind of like how I'm leaning towards, especially some of these Valiant books. I love that they're definitely taking this world seriously, but Fallen World is an example of them not taking everything so seriously,
yeah.
and I think it worked in its favor.
Okay. Now that one I'll have to stay mum on that one for a little bit because that one
Oh,
it's on my list. But it's a different one. But for me, number four actually was Punk Mambo was my number four, and that
really?
that one was really really hard. It was really
Yeah.
really 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 hard to decide because it was a toss up between that and my number three. And I guess really like they're both like my number three, but if I had to put them in an order,
It's like the
and
hardest decision ever, right? Like,
it
oh,
really is. Like let's preface this by this is probably one of the hardest comic book related things that I've done is having to narrow down all of everything like
yeah.
from
It was
Valiant
supposed
last
to be
year.
top three when we started this, and we are like, hold on, hold on. There's too many titles here.
Exactly. Like there's just too much good stuff that just you
Yeah.
can't. So and but okay, so I'll go into number three next. But the thing for about Plunk Mambo, man, is that I like the character just because I've liked her appearances in like Ninjak, and she's usually pretty solid, um, supporting character. So I didn't necessarily have like the highest hopes as far as seeing her out as a standalone. Like I figured one way or the other it would be pretty entertaining, and it's Valiant, so at this point they're what nine let's see 8 years in, just killing it year after year, something like. So there's probably going to be something pretty solid here, so let me just check it out and see what happens. And it definitely took like all of my mundane expectations and just like threw them way over my head. I mean, the characterization, even just from like the very very first couple pages where she's in like the trailer park and fighting those hills have eyes types.
Yeah.
Like the internal dialogue with the ridiculousness of what's going on, I felt like was the perfect mix that you don't get to see very often when it comes to the characters who are a little bit more on the humorous side. Like, let me think. All right, like say for example, like Deadpool, right? Deadpool is a great character when used right. When he was like an X-Force and he was a crazy person, and that's what made him funny. But it wasn't like I'm funny and that's what makes me a crazy person, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like with a character like Punk Mambo, she's foul mouthed and she's British and she's got the mohawk and all this like just gaudiness going on. It's really, really easy to just slide into like the memery. That's not even a word. I just invented that.
But I get it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it would have been really, really easy to write just like some lighthearted stuff, maybe slip in a couple fourth wall breaks or whatever. But instead, man, just Cullen Bunn, like he just went hard with it. Like the Punk Mambo series, I would put up against like OG Hellblazer. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna need some more to stack up because Hellblazer was like 150 something issues of just greatness, but you get what I'm saying though.
Yeah,
Like
it's got
that's
that
like
vibe, right? Like
exactly
it
like that
captures
core
that.
is right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like even saying all that, like could Punk Mambo maybe have placed higher if it was longer than 4 issues?
Yeah, that's hard to say just because there's very thin margins on what made each one slightly higher for me. I think what would have probably bumped up Punk Mambo higher for me is if we gotten more news on what's the follow-up will be, because out of everything on the list, I think the ending of Punk Mambo was probably like the most blow your hair back. Like, well, that's hard to say because there's a couple that were pretty wild endings too. But just how it ends with like the reveal of the actual villain the whole time, and like the reader knowing all these things that's going on that she has no idea about, even after going through such a crazy ordeal. Like every single issue was just spot on, and like
Oh, and I think it was 5 issues. I might have said 4. It
yeah,
was
it was
it was
five.
5 total, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
But yeah, even then, it felt like it's like did it need more room to flesh out? Did there need to be another issue? Because some of them run 6 issues, and like I thought this one had maybe the most potential out of all of them for 2019, in my opinion. And
yeah, well, here's the thing that really that kind of I think really does it for as far as I think it would have been probably in my top two if Punk Mambo had been like an ongoing, or if they'd been like, all right, we're gonna wait like 3 months and then do like Punk Mambo Part 2. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And then
yeah,
just take off with because the way it ended way too strong
yeah,
to like this long lull. I don't think it's going to hurt the book because it's going to give it a lot of people who maybe not have had a chance to read it time to catch up and see what she's really about and be on the same page we're at where how that how it ends in the new status quo for Punk Mambo.
yeah.
But I think that for lack of a better word, I do think that it being a mini series and not an ongoing kind of hurts it. Just
Uh,
because it's like by the
yeah,
time it ends you're like
yeah,
I just need a couple more pages to flip like this is
yeah.
but
And
rock solid book all the way throughout.
yeah,
And then those Dan Burton variant covers, probably
yeah,
they're probably my favorite covers of Valiant 2019. It's like
yeah,
all of them were just superbly well done in like the perfect mix of like weird punk rock, crazy musician voodoo. All of it
yeah,
together was just beautiful.
definitely. I couldn't agree more. Does that take us into book number 3?
I think we were on number 3. Okay.
Like, I've got a great transition because my number 3 spot is Punk Mambo. Like, I had to go a little bit higher because, like I said, this book has so so much potential for a single character driven book, and they really delivered on so much. This creative team did so many wonderful things with the character. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. It's always like, oh, I need those last couple pages, because especially the way this one ends. Like, she goes through that character development of kind of pulling, like cutting some strings, and not it's very punk but not being controlled, and I liked that. I dug it. And then you get to the end, and it's actually just part of a grander scheme of being manipulated. Spoiler alert. And oh my gosh. But one of the coolest things is they end with Punk Mambo will return. And
Yes.
that was, I think, one of the smartest moves, because you don't always get that with Valiant. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just a cold ending, and it's just like, he's coming back, but it's not so definitive like this.
Hmm.
And I think that may have ticked it up a notch for me, because they know what they're doing. Like, they're building anticipation for this. That final page reveal was just intense, but it only works because of how well the character development was. And I think Bunn did a lot of that work, and then the artwork from everybody involved kind of helped sell this character in a way
For
that I
sure.
didn't expect. Yeah, it's like you said, you're along for the ride really early on, and it captures this Hellblazer vibe, but I don't want to say it's more lighthearted, because it's really not. The way the themes that they deal with, it's more so, I guess, the visuals and the presentation. The color palette's a
Mhm.
lot different than what you see in Hellblazer. This is a little bit lighter with her pink hair and the Loa that are involved and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it
Sure.
helps to kind of create like this unique aesthetic for Punk Mambo, and then you just kind of throw this character in it that is almost this like anarchistic punk. I don't want to say stereotype, but like fundamental punk character. Like, this is the epitome of punk, and then
Hmm.
you throw them in the Valiant universe, and that was a tough sell, I think. When you're looking at it on the
Yeah.
shelves, like, is this for me? Because I'll be honest, I'm a metalhead if when it comes to that. So
Hmm.
punk for me, I was like, okay, I get the themes, I can dig this, and but the character development, oh my gosh, like that's what sold it. I think is like you're along for her ride,
Yeah.
and what's happening with her lower that severance, and then you kind of start picking up on this whole story's punk, and
Yeah.
like
It
that
really
makes me
is.
love it. Like, the whole narrative is driven by very punk themes, and oh, super cool. That's right up my alley. Like, love that with the I I wanted to see a Shadow Man cameo, not gonna lie. If Shadow Man shows up in Punk Mambo, that's immediately one or two for me. Like, it's up there. It was I was thinking it's right there, and maybe not a spoiler alert, but we've got Shadow Man coming in Valiant 2020.
Mhm.
We've got Punk Mambo who will return. Oh, I'm seeing something happening here. Like, I'm seeing something.
Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's something. Oh, I hadn't. Now that's making me rethink because I hadn't thought about that. Because if you remember,
Yeah.
like in the end half of the last Shadow Man run, it was actually pretty similar. You know, if Punk Mambo is just like classic like scum punk, British punk, like CBGB punk, I would
Yeah.
say Shadow Man is like blues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the
The
like
saxophone blues and New
yeah,
Orleans
like
type. Yeah, a
exactly.
little more jazz, but yeah, I get
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
like they vibe, and the two of them like they clash, but they vibe at the same time. And a lot of the end of Shadow Man dealt with a lot of control. Dealing with
Oh,
what's Dark's sister. I can't remember her name off the top of my head right at the second, but dealing with her and then just Master Dark and then all the things that he went through. And he was the Magpie and all that, and the different Shadow Men throughout time, different
yeah.
eras and everything. So they are in their own way. They're vastly different in how they're handling, but they are in like similar pathways almost. So it
Yeah.
would be cool. It would be really cool to see how their two different personalities and their approaches to all of this crazy stuff with the Loa like comes to a head when because let's be real, when the villain from the villain reveal from number 5 and Punk Mambo come head to head, she's probably gonna need some backup. You
Mm,
know what I mean? So
yeah.
and being where she's from and Shadow Man being from New Orleans and like having that whole New Orleans vibe,
Yeah.
it's 2 + 2 = 4. Valiant,
Yeah.
hook it up.
Yeah. It
You
was
know?
right there.
Yeah.
But I love that description of the kind of a more musical approach to these characters and how punk clashes with this blues, jazz, and New Orleans. And I think that does like encapsulate these characters really well and seeing them come together. So maybe Punk Mambo's leading to that. I think that ending in Punk Mambo number 5, I think with Bridget, who's kind of doing a lot of the manipulation, I think that is a lead in to Valiant 2020.
Yeah.
I see that really coming back in a big way. And that's what really like I put that book down and I was just like, I gotta tell somebody about this. like I gotta tell somebody how cool this was because I didn't see it coming. And that's really cool stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So what
See, and
about
now
you?
you see why I was so excited when you told me you're reading it. I was like, I can't wait till it gets to the end.
The
It's like
ending note,
so
yeah.
giddy, dude. It was like being like a kid on Christmas or something. Oh man. All right, so let's see. So for number 3, my number 3 pick, this one, it was a really, 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 really tough call between this one and Punk Mambo, but I went with Killers for my number 3 actually. Um, part of why I went with Killers is for one the again the ending, the impact of the ending, because the whole KI6 reveal is like huge, and the idea that like these merciless, like cutthroat, just straight up gangsters are in their own way going to try to be the good guys,
Yeah.
even though they don't
Yeah.
see themselves that way. I mean, when you're like, well, we're going to be the scum taking out the scum, it's almost like the Secret Six, you know what I mean? Like during like Infinite Crisis and all that, when they were like, nah, Luthor can stuff it and the Justice League can stuff it. We're just gonna like cut our own swath through all this. But they're gonna do it quite literally,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
just
dude, for
it's
real.
killers, dude. And like just the whole thing, like the setup, the ridiculous fights, sights, and the drama between him and Ninja G when that finally comes to light,
Yeah.
and Snapdragon and dude, the fight on the plane. Every time we've mentioned it, I've had to bring that up, but I can't get over just how like ridiculous that
Yeah.
is. But it was so ridiculously cool. Like it's one of those things where it could have easily been like a corny moment, but they just did it
Mm.
so well that it was just such. You're just like, this is exactly what I wanted. You know,
Yeah.
like when you
Yeah.
pick up a book like Killers, and
Yeah,
then just the
definitely.
covers for like that number 3 that had the Snapdragon variant.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh man, that's a
That was a
beautiful
great
cover.
one.
You
It
don't know what
really
I'm talking
was.
about. Google it when you're done watching this. Google
Yeah.
it, buy it. You'll thank me
Yeah.
later.
Yo.
And just all the work that they did, taking like this handful of relatively unknown characters. Because at that point, I mean, with the exception of like Ninja G and the Jonin, they didn't really have a ton of development for the other ninjas, and they took just like a couple issues and not only made the characters themselves something that like from what you actually cared about, which is hard to do for like an entire cast of characters, not just like some onesies and twosies. And then on top of which, like the overall impact it had, not just on like the Ninja program
Yeah.
and MI5 and Ninjak, but just in Valiant in general. Like there's this whole new world that they can just dive into of just like crazy ninja mysticism and spy stuff and just like
Yeah.
all of these cool things that for the most part, if you wanted to see anything like that from a Valiant book, if it wasn't in like Unity or Ninjak, you weren't going to get it. You know what I mean? Because they did have the core characters that they stuck to. Formula worked, not complain about it, but just it's really difficult to take something that is very grassroots and organically grown, and like it's like KFC, man, like they just stick to the formula and it works. And so to be able to add like another secret ingredient, but it's just as great as what came before while adding on to it without
Yeah.
messing with anything, but just adding more greatness. Like that doesn't happen all that often. You know what I mean? Think about
Yeah.
how many in other publishers, how many team books have ever been added. You know, and like let's be real, like nobody in the history of ever is like, dude, New Warriors just changed the game. You know what I mean? like that's never
Yeah.
happened.
No.
But that's exactly what they did with Killers, and it was like almost
Oh,
effortless,
oh,
effortless
yeah.
on their part. And once you, and it's also one of those things too, is that when you get to the end of Killers and you really like those last couple pages, like you have to read them a couple times and like really
Yeah.
let it marinate in your head, like how crazy what they just agreed to sign up for really is, and like the implications to it, and just everything else. Like it's just it's an amazing book. Um, if you haven't checked it out, I don't know what's wrong with you. Pick it up. Um,
Yeah.
and just shout out to like just Claymore and everybody
Yeah.
on.
Dagnino's artwork was just crazy. Oh man, that so much of it. And I guess I'm gonna just say I agree like times 100 because Killers is my number two book. And like Killers was
Nice.
yeah, it's a book that it's like this is what I want. You know, this is to me this is like prime Valiant Comics material. Like this is it kind of captures everything I wanted out of a book called Killers, but it
Yeah.
brought a whole new layer. And I love implications in a larger Valiant universe. I mean, you'll hear that time and time again from me because they do their connected universe so well. So
Mhm.
when they explore it, because a lot of their books are structured like Killers in a way that anybody can pick them up. And I really enjoy that because you don't have to follow everything to enjoy the book, but it pays off when you're following. And Killers is a
Exactly.
perfect example of that. And, you know, I can hand this book to somebody who's never read a Valiant book, and it's going to be awesome, badass ninja comics, like to the best. And people are going
Mhm.
to get a lot out of it. But when you understand what it means in a when it's set in the Valiant universe, I think the series really like comes to life because
Yeah.
like you're sitting on this book and you're reading about it and it's a bunch of pretty much past ninjas who are being brought back into the spotlight. And we follow it through Ninja G, but then we explore it through others. But they're killers. You expect to this race to this goal to be the end of it of them just killing each other. And you know, last man standing, woman
Mhm.
is gonna be it. But that is so not what we get. And like it was that was the brilliance of that series because in just that, not even just it being a twist, but because that twist means so much for the Valiant universe now. Now you've unleashed KI6 on the Valiant universe. And what does that
Oh,
mean?
boy.
That's so exciting. And it's not like, you know, this book is a setup for something cooler. This book is cool. And the team that
Yeah.
we get as a result is something that I'm gonna be down to see for a long time in different creative teams. So a lot of good groundwork laid in this. Um, the visuals and everything in it kind of create something new, I think, for Valiant. There's
Mhm.
this, I don't know, there's like a high fashion vibe to some of it when it's with Snapdragon and Ninja G, like the covers that you get, the big fur coats, but it's also like swords with blood. Really loved
Yeah.
all of like such a unique aesthetic. I love every time I saw one of the Killers covers. Like with issue one, I was like, "What is this?" Because I was like, this is insane. Like buy one and then like look around and pick up another copy just because. But
Right.
it is like it was just really awesome to kind of dive in and think I'm getting some cool ninja comics, but then see it unravel and then start to touch on all these other ninjas and the backstory that you really only get out of Ninjak or a lot of it in Ninja K. But
Mhm.
you get to explore that kind of part of the Valiant universe from such an exciting new perspective because it's so big and it's so grand. And these characters that they introduced, oh my gosh, they're also violent and kind of standoffish, but they're also like unique and highly developed personalities and they're killers. They just walk around and kill people. Like each issue has a lot of death in it and a lot of violence. This is not something that it's like cut away when the death is about to happen. Like it pays off in those moments, and for the end of it to be to take that twist and kind of take a heartfelt twist on it and put these characters in a position where, yeah, this is harder than just killing each other. Like what they're
Yeah,
signing up for is probably the hardest thing like any of them could have ever thought of when if you would have asked them before this moment. Like this is really cool to see the creative team, I guess, actually commit to a concept like this and really bring it to life because KI6 when that book drops, I mean we're man, like Ninjak better watch out because like I love Ninjak, arguably some of my favorite Valiant comics, but KI6 has potential to bring everything I love in Ninjak and more. So, ooh,
yeah, and here's the thing that like it really didn't dawn on me, I think, until maybe even after we even did the episode where we covered the
yeah,
entire Killers event,
yeah,
is that as cool as it would have been, because for one thing you touched on too, and this kind of ties into it, is to commit to a concept like this, they didn't have to. If they
yeah,
would have just went with like, okay, Ninja G is clearly like the the most heroic of a bunch of not very heroic characters, but if they would have went with her being the last man standing, and so to speak, then no harm no foul. Like nobody would have been like, oh well, that's yeah, it's a little bit. It would have been the most predictable ending, but at the same time, that in order for her to be the last ninja, she would have had to gone through some insanity to take all the other ones out, and that could really be said for literally any of the members of KI6. Like
yeah,
in order for them to be the last one standing, they would have had to like outsmarted, outfought, just completely out strategized, outmaneuvered, just out everythinged a bunch of dudes who were all equally as capable as Ninjak. And that's another thing I like about it too, is that it doesn't water them down at any point. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like as they go, if anything, they become more and more dangerous. Like as they get more in the habit of like, okay, I'm not fighting scrubs anymore. Like I'm not just like knocking off dudes that owe somebody money. Like I'm going up against like some hard hitting mofos who have the same abilities that I do, so to speak.
yeah,
And there's like they don't shy away from it. And it's like you said too, that putting them together and having them try to function as a team is, for one, it's a lot more of a challenge for the writer because that's something that you're gonna have, like the way they've been set up, you're gonna expect quality from all the characters. Like you can't just have like Ninja G be awesome or
yeah,
Carapace be like, yeah, suave, like, debonair dude, and you can just leave it at that, like he's one dimensional now. Like all of them are like these potential rich soil to plant.
mhm,
And
yeah,
so when you put them all together like that, and then again, when you bring up like Ninjak, dude, somewhere along the lines, KI6 and Ninjak are gonna have it out. When?
yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
know. And the thing about that is that Ninjak's not a sucker too, so we'll probably see like Ninjak, Bloodshot, Eternal Warrior, 3 versus 6 action or something insane like that. And then on top of which, the killers have an army. Like they have an
Oh,
army
they do.
too.
Oh
You
my
know what I
God.
mean? Like
Yeah,
there's so like oh like that's that there's so much to that book that it's
yeah,
like like they really like sometimes it's a long shot that breaks the bank and they like atomized it. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? They
yeah,
didn't
absolutely.
just break the mold. Like they just like I feel like that book right there kind of has just generally raised the bar for like superhero ninja comics
Yeah,
because you don't really see that happen that often. The last time it was really something on that level was like when Matt Fraction did like Iron Fist, and there was they revealed all the other immortal cities, or like
yeah.
when Frank Miller, like way back when, did like Born Again and all that stuff with Daredevil,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like that whole era of Daredevil, um, like Frank Miller and Nasceni. But aside from that, when it comes to action books, you get some gore, some whippy
Yeah,
lines,
yeah,
some snappy banner, and then that's it. But they're like, nah, like we're making this. This is like not just a quick punch for money. Like we're going in. I mean,
yeah.
all right, I can talk about
Yeah,
killers all night, man.
yeah, we could do a
It's
whole other episode on killers. Like,
we
it's
really
that kind
could.
of book. Yeah.
It's that good, man. It's that
Uh,
good,
but like,
and
where are you at
that's
number two? Like,
okay.
we've
So
we've
for
done
number two,
killers.
All right. Now, this one was a hard call for me between what would be my number two and my number one. And really, just like the top four was hard. Incursion had the one thing that made it easy to make it number five. But
Yeah.
okay. So for number two, I actually went with The Life and Death of Toyo Harada. For
What?
my number two, yeah,
I'm
I did.
shook.
Really, and here's why, is
Mhm.
because I knew going into it that it was going to be something wild. Just
Yeah.
because you don't name a book. First off, you can't have that title on a book like that after all the work they've done to make Harbinger as good as it is and come at it half-hearted, right? Like that would have
Yeah.
just been like just rage letters. Like they'd had so much angry emails, tweets, all that nonsense. But like every aspect of life and death of Toya Harada is pretty much perfect for when you really sit and think about like the core of the character and
Yeah.
like the people that he keeps around him and how he would work to keep somebody like the Vine Assassin LV-99
Yeah.
and like the Psyots that work for him, the coolest robot ever, Sunlight on Snow.
I'm
Like,
gonna cry already. Like I can't take
like
that.
you know what I mean? Like everything about that book was just spot on. And I feel like if it's almost like a tie for number one, man, because I
Yeah.
have very different reasons for why my number one was number one, but I feel like as far as if I had to pick a book that really encapsulated all of the elements that make Valiant like different from everybody else
Mhm.
and really shows how they've like just came out of complete left field in 2012 and they've managed to just stay strong this whole time. Toyo Harada is definitely it. Like
Yeah.
if you've never read like Harbinger War or if you're say you haven't even touched a Valiant book since like 93, like The Life and Death of Toyo Harada is the kind of book that you can read and by the time it's done, you're like, I want to know everything about not just Toyo Harada and this like gang of cold blooded thugs and people that he's got with him, but like the rest of the world, like if like what world are they in where this team can exist? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this collection of characters is there, and it makes you want to not just go back and read like Imperium and Harbinger Wars and like Renegades and even some of the like more fringe stuff like Generation Zero. Like you want to know just how far the web of Toyo Harada really goes. And so I think if any book of 2019 really captured the spirit of Valiant, it's probably The Life and Death of Toyo Harada. Um, Especially like in a present sense and a historical sense. I mean, there's just really I can't think of any reason not to read it. Like I honestly can't think of any reason not to read it, and definitely not to buy it. Like I have the singles and the trade. Which
Yeah.
Greg Catherine, what's up? But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
You
like
have to shout
it's
out
just
there.
such a solid book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. It's at this level though, yeah, top three, you could probably interchange all of them. Yeah, so Toyo Harada for me, I agree with everything you said, and I'll have so much more to say, but it really is the book. I think you explained it perfectly. It captures the essence of Valiant Comics. And I say that not really lighthearted because not only what it does with Toyo Harada in that web, but because of all the other characters that are in it. And I think that is like the spirit of Valiant. That's kind of what keeps you coming back to it. And the life and death of Toyo Harada, it encapsulates so much and all the people he engaged with and interacted with and manipulated. Um, that is ultimately kind of what made this book so strong because it's a very large timeline piece and all of those different pieces weave together. And that's kind of, seeing that come to fruition, just good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So before we drop our number ones, all right, honorable
Yeah.
mention. Okay. What's yours? What was your go-to? What was your almost your honorary number six, so to speak?
Okay. Yeah, like I love that we even did this because there's going to be a lot of hype in Valiant 2020. We have so much to talk about coming up. That
Yeah,
I
boy.
didn't want everything awesome in 2019 to kind of just get lost. So I was really excited that we decided to do this, and even though we bumped up the numbers to top five, we still have to have room for honorable mentions because there's seriously there are things that we have left out that we're not talking about that you still got to check out. And that being said, my honorable mentions, my first one has to be Livewire. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, Livewire is. I think that is the honorable mention that you could throw in at any spot in number five, in the top five. And I think any Valiant fan would say, yeah, I agree with that. Because it was a strong series. It ran for 12 issues. It had a lot of room to breathe and flesh this character out. It picked up on an exciting time in Livewire's life, and it took the character in exciting places, and I didn't want it to end. And yeah, for that one, I wanted to place it at a certain number, but it was ultimately one that I think kind of stands out on its own because Valiant's doing a lot of shorter series right now.
Mhm.
And Livewire was the book that kind of kept going throughout last year. And, it was the steady. So we kind of kept coming back to Livewire. And that really made me enjoy the character and love the character in a new way that stands apart from what we've seen in Harbinger and her other her other times in the Valiant universe. And in a similar way with Punk Mambo, the character development is ultimately what made the book stand out. The voice that Ayala brought to the character is, can be doing anything, and I'm gonna read it. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be some awesome spectacle. It could be Livewire going to get a cheeseburger, and I'm gonna be like, yes, like I want this. And that book, that was the one that I knew the end was coming, but they could have kept that one ongoing for another 12 issues, and I would have kept buying it nonstop. And before I pass it over for your honorable mentions, I have to bring up Dr. Mirage too. There's just too
Yeah.
many. I gotta bring some spotlight to Dr. Mirage. They did some really exciting things. Nick Robles' artwork to just, I think, revolutionize the Dead Side and what can be done with the concept. And that
Yeah.
artwork just kept you going. It was psychedelic, dark horror, really, really cool stuff. And they take Dr. Mirage into a new place, new territory for the character. And the ending is, I don't know, that's what kept me from placing it. But I'm definitely going to come back to see what it means. And now that we've seen a little bit of direction with Valiant, we've gotten a little context. So I'm a bit more excited in the potential of Doctor Tomorrow and what that means for Doctor Mirage. We could get some cool things out of it, but ultimately, I thought that one needed a stronger ending, and that was what kept me from placing it there. But that being said, go buy every issue because
Yeah.
I mean we're talking tiny nitpicks at this point. This is like Valiant at their tops, and like this is all around great stuff. So, what did you have for honorable mentions?
Okay. So I actually had two as well.
Yeah.
The first one is gonna be actually I'm gonna go Sillards as my. I'm gonna go over that one first, and here's why. The only thing that kept
Okay.
me from putting Sillards on the top five is because I feel like it was one of those books that everything about it was really great. And the only thing about it is that it feels like I don't know how to explain it. Like the writing is really solid. It was not necessarily wonky, but it took a couple issues I think to really find its footing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, it was it was very risky, I would say, because there's almost like and I hate to put it this way, but like almost like a Super Sentai vibe, like when you first, like a Power Ranger Z, like because
Yeah.
they're color coordinated and everything like that, and it's like you have
Yeah.
like the smart one and da 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 da, it's
Yeah.
like Scooby and the Gang archetypes almost or something like that,
Yeah.
and not to knock it because it actually is like beautiful the way that every issue, the way it world builds, The way that the characters learn about themselves and their interactions with each other, they're learning about their powers. Hazard is a beast. Um, like everything about that book is just really good. And the only that's that literally that one little bit that I think that of everything on the list, the only thing that kept it from being on the list is that I felt like it didn't have necessarily the strongest number one. If you're of well, in comparison to like everything else in Valiant, but even then, that's like I don't even know. Like I don't even know how to get comparison because it's like it's still great. It's like you said, it's just little nitpicks. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah, definitely.
tomorrow, if we'd done this over again, like I probably could have had it easily an entirely different top five,
Oh
and
yeah.
valid reasons for why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like the art, dude, Renato Gutierrez on that art, man. Like even if Fred Van Lenny just had done that entire book and it was just like he just wrote the scripts and they just drew it with no words, I would still buy it. Like
Yeah.
straight up because the story is like nuts. You know, the whole vampire star thing, and they're like, you know, people just waking up in space, which like if that doesn't give you like a little bit of like anxiety just thinking about that concept, then there's something wrong with you. But everything about it worked out really, 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 really well. And one of the things that I really appreciated about it was, well, two things actually. One, the world building in space, because with the exception of a handful of times where EXO, like the latest run with that Matt Kent did, there's not a lot of Valiant that really gets into like deep space weirdness. You know, there's occasionally EXO, Eternity, the last story they used Divinity for was really really good for that, but that's a little bit more like metaphysical, you know. And as far as like the space stuff, you really just see like the Vine, and that's kind of it, you know. Armor Hunters here and there. So to see like these other races in space and to see like these other sets of like powers, and it's almost like adding, you know, it's like being like I don't know, like Leif Erikson or something in Discovering America, and you're just like, look at all these like new cultures and things. Like, what is? Like, it was like right in my backyard this whole time. Like, what's going on here? You know.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I liked about it too is that as you're going through it, you're in the back of your mind, you're enjoying it for what it is, but you're like, well, this is Valiant. Everything in Valiant's interconnected. You know, it's done in a way that every book is reader friendly. You know, new reader friendly, but there's always still something. And maybe it's just like I'm like I just have like an I don't know, like I'm just partial to General Capshaw, but I love that character. I love General Capshaw. So like when they reveal that she was behind why the Psylords were in space in the first place and all that, it was such a small, yeah, it was like such a small thing until you like really think about it. You're like, holy crap! So sooner or later, when they get back on Earth, they're going to be like right in the thick of it because you know she's like BFFs with Exo Manowar and you know like Ninjak and pretty much all the other people who don't really trust suits. All the ones that have interacted with her for the most part trust her. So if she's like, well, look, I sent these astronauts out there, they came back, now they're all hyper juiced up, like we might have to do something about them. Like just all the implications of that one little reveal of her being involved in that story was just like and so, and then, like I said, every issue has just been ridiculously great world building and just solid storytelling. There's a perfect mix of like action and mystery and humor, and just that team right there. If they can just keep doing Psylords, if they could go to like 405 issues or something like that, I would not be one bit upset about that. Speaking of great teams, though, that brings me to my other honorable mention, and that is Bloodshot #1.
Oh, really?
Yes, here's why. Because here's the thing: is that I feel like if Bloodshot had came out a little bit earlier in the year of 2019, it definitely would have been in the top 5 for me.
Oh yeah,
just
absolutely.
Because Tim Seeley's just everything about what Tim Seeley did with that book was just phenomenal. Just from the first issue on, he touched over like almost the entire history of Bloodshot, like, and not just like, you know, I don't know who I am and da-da-da. Like he was like powers, you know, like the shape shifting. People forget that he can do that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like even I've been in Bloodshot forever, And
Yeah.
like, I was like, yeah, that's a thing he can do. Why doesn't he ever do that? And he just like everything. It wasn't just going in like Terminator, just soaking up bullets. I mean, he did all that stuff too. But he literally just it's like him and Brett Booth and Corona and just the whole team, Dalhouse, like all of them. They just brought the
Yep.
A game and really set up that they love Bloodshot and they want it to be like, you could just feel that they're like, we want this to be like one of the great runs of Bloodshot from
Yeah.
everything from start to finish, and every single issue up to, I think their number 6 is coming out soon, or number 5 just came out.
Yeah.
And
5 just dropped.
but yeah, so just like all of those issues leading up to it, it's just all of it. It's just good, just not even good, just great, great,
There it
great.
is. Yeah.
Like all of it is just like dude, who is not reading Bloodshot right now? What are you doing with your life? What do you do? Like, one new comic book there, you just like, nah, keep that good, good. Like, I'll just take the meh. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
It's so solid. Everything about it, like, it's too good, man. It's too good. And but yeah, that, like I said, that was the only thing. Like, maybe if it had hit like number 6 or 7, with like the whole, now that the burn been revealed and all that good stuff that's going on. I don't want to spoil it too much because it's brand new. Go check it out. Pick it up. Bloodshot number 5. If you haven't read it yet. But yeah, if it would have just had like maybe an issue or two more, it definitely would have made it into my top 5 of 2019. Top 5.
Yeah, I think that's the case with a few of them because they had a few issues that came out towards the end of the year where it's hard to say, that's better than Killers or Punk Mambo that had its chance to really deliver in 2019.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. The main event. What you got for numero uno?
Yeah, okay, so this one, I was shocked when you placed it at number 2. Life and Death of Toyo Harada, to me, is the number 1 book of 2019 for Valiant Comics. Like, oh my, this is epic storytelling on a level that you don't always get from Valiant, that you don't always get from any comic publisher, because the magnitude that this story is on and the execution, this is something that it's not to be taken lightly. Like, this isn't a book. I loved Killers. Killers is my number 2 book, but what stopped it from being number 1 is the pure grand epic storytelling nature of Life and Death of Toyo Harada. It's something that it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Some publishers have some epic stuff going on, like DC with Doomsday Clock and this new Dawn of X that we've got at Marvel, and everybody's talking about it, and I'm like, have you heard Life and Death of Toyo Harada yet? Have you gotten your hands on this book? Because this is, like, to me, this is it's quality comics on a level that isn't always there, because a lot of them are just kind of fun, casual books that don't have such substance. But in this one, I loved how you said it explores the web of Toyo Harada and like, how many people he touched in his life, because the story is told in a non-linear format. You get, glimpses of his life and how it all culminates into this plan that it really does include the life and death of Toyo Harada, and he understands the nature of that and what it means, and you get to go on this ride of epic manipulation. It is something that when you think you got it figured out, you don't. You just don't. Like, the payoff on that one, yeah.
And the funny thing too is that you almost feel bad for enjoying how well done the manipulation is.
It's true. It's true.
You're like,
yeah.
I don't think I should be cheering for that. Like, I can't, but dude, I can't believe he got away with that. Like, oh, it's so good.
It's true. You're kind of like apprehensive almost, because Toyo Harada is an anti-hero. I think true in my opinion. He stands for a lot of good and very direct things, but there's some shady stuff there. You don't get pure good hero out of Toyo Harada, no matter how way you cut that one. You just don't. So I think that allowed the creative team to kind of approach some themes that you don't always see and that are maybe more adult, that have depth, that kind of helped this book stand out as something new and something that is exciting on a level that I didn't expect. Like I'm reading it, and as I'm reading it, it's coming to me that this is something that is epic. That I can't say it enough. That is, this book stands out on a list of top five. Like sitting down, I didn't think that I had a choice with number one because that book, that was like I'm like, okay, I'm at Toyo Harada, and now where are we at with these others?
Yeah.
And that ultimately was like, not to say all these other ones are on a subpart level or anything like that, but this stands out. You read Toyo Harada and it is unique because not only do you get characters that bring back, like you said, an Imperium and stuff like that with Sunlight on Snow. It takes their stories and it builds on them in such an exciting way because it fleshes them out in so many different time periods and uses that nonlinear storytelling to bring character development, and it's something I've never seen. So aside from it, being good plotting and artwork and everything down to the letters, it's an awesome use of the comics medium, down to its core. It's using comics as an entertainment medium to do something that you're not going to find anywhere else. And for that reason, I think it just catapults Life and Death of Toyo Harada to a number one spot. Like almost for me anyway, I look at it because like this is why I read comics. I
Yeah.
love killers. I love punk mambo. This is great team up, a great character driven, almost drama, but you're getting something entirely different out of Toyo Harada. And I say it because it's significant for Valiant to really pull off something of this level and of this quality because like I'll put it on level with any of the best books of 2019 from any publisher. Like this is the book that I'm going to put up to say, this is the best comic that came out of 2019. And there's a lot of stiff competition, and you can open it up and say Toyo Harada delivers on every level and it brings something new to comics.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's my number one.
Yeah. Before I go into my number one, I have to agree with you on a couple things for
Yeah.
sure. One of the things that you said that really stood out to me, and it's definitely why it was such a struggle for me on which one would be my number one between Toyo Harada and the one that I did pick, is that they did, Doomsday Clock. How much hype was going into that, and
Yeah.
then anytime Jonathan Hickman's going to take over like a whole, like not like a single character book, but like a whole franchise of books, you're going to be facing some stiff competition if you're not on the same team. And I'm sorry to say, but as far as events go, really, I wouldn't even say just from 2019, but just from like the last couple of years, there's not really one that holds a candle the way that Toyo Harada does. And I'm sorry, like, and even and it's like you said, even when it comes to like the other Valiant books, not to down them or anything, because they're
Yeah.
all. This was a very, 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 very tough call to just narrow it down to just the top five.
Yeah.
But there's something unique, like if okay, all right, put it like this, right? Like Sega has a bazillion amazing games, and there's when you say like Sega Genesis, you have a whole list of games that you'll be like, I will fight tooth and nail for the rest of my life that those are good games, and if anybody says otherwise, they'll probably have to meet me in the front yard. But the first thing that pops in your head when you think of Sega is Sonic the Hedgehog. Toyo
Mm.
Harada is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes.
That's a soundbite for you, right? But that's like,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah.
That's like Toyo Harada when it comes to 2019 and great comics. It's like bang,
Yep.
and
Iconic.
it
Yeah.
yeah, like and it's so it's not necessarily that it's like it was better than all the other things, but it's just like in a different class, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so that's what made it like a really big struggle for me. My number one pick actually was just like a squeak by, and there's a couple of reasons for that. So the number one pick I went with was Fallen World.
What? No way.
Yes. Here's all right.
Wow,
Here's
that's
I have
up
to explain
there.
this. Yeah. Here's the thing. When it comes to Rye, okay,
Okay.
I always enjoyed Rye books. At first, it wasn't even really so much because I was super into the story of Rex and like I already got Bloodshot. but just because like Clayton Crane was doing the art in the original like 4000 AD and then 4001 and like the like Fall of Ninjak and like all the 4000 AD books or 4001 AD books were all really cool. They were all really good, and I highly recommend them. But they always, even though they felt like they were Valiant books, like they always felt detached, which I mean makes sense. No, they're like a bunch of years in the future. But when Fallen World hit, for one, Dan Abnett wrote it, which okay. Let me preface that. Well, not preface that, but all right. The thing with Dan Abnett writing it is that I was extremely iffy on how that was going to work out because this is really like his first big foray into Valiant, and it's like, is he going to try to make it like something from Marvel or DC, or does he like really get the characters? Because there's Rye is a character that has a pretty limited amount of things to work with to really understand the core of it, just because the way it's been written, he's been written in the past, and the 4000 AD world's been written in the past. It's pretty blunt to the point. Like, this is Rye, this is what he's about. Like, there's not a lot of wiggle room. Like, you can have like 15 different versions of Superman and they all be Superman. You know what I'm saying? But Rye is Rye. And so there was a lot, I feel like there was a lot at stake as far as taking in a quote unquote outsider and giving them one of your more niche, like very built-in cult-based fan groups characters like Rye. And so when Abnett took it and just smack, like, oh, he killed like every single issue. I can't think of, there was like 2 seconds where I was almost pissed off at him for turning Bloodshot into the main villain.
Yeah.
Like, and the whole Bloodfather thing, for like a split second when I seen him do it, I was like, what are you doing? And then like the next page, I was like, ooh, like, and then the next page, I'm like, and the next page, I'm like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like everything about it, like he didn't do something like that. Yeah, he didn't do that arbitrarily. Like he did, it wasn't like one of those, well, I don't understand this character, so I'm just going to do whatever with him. Like everything about the lethal nature of Bloodshot being combined with like the cold-heartedness of the father AI smashed together for like the perfect, terrifying, futuristic villain. And then all the cool things that he did with the nanites, where he's just like making duplicates of himself, and he's like, "Bro, are you really attacking me with a sword right now? Like, what are you doing with your life?" Like everything, like everything about like that new character, I was like, dude, that might be like my new favorite Valiant villain. Like him and Toyo are pretty neck and neck. And but then, all right, and so that's one thing, and then the other thing too is that I wasn't sure I was gonna dig it as much without the Clayton Crane art on it. That was a big selling point for me with the original Rise stuff. And so like just seeing another artist come in and tackle it and just like like Jose Rip and just really just get it. Like really like like he just really did his thing on it. Like that whole team on Fallen World was amazing, and they wrapped in so much. Like the entire future universe, I feel like it finally really feels not like a far off tale. Like it really feels like this is like canon. This is what the future is gonna be like. It doesn't I don't think there's gonna be any time between now and future stories that does anything to really try to completely retcon them, just because everything in Fallen World was done so well. He established what the Fallen World is like. Like he literally in just those 5 issues built like an entire Earth, and dude, what's the elephant's name? I can't remember. This is gonna drive me insane. I'll have it written down, but like I'll have it in a second. But just dude, an elephant coming in with like a maul, just like like just come at me, bro, just smashing, just smashing cold timbers, and like at one point, like Rai like kicks a alligator man in the face and then suplexes him and stuff. Like it's so ridiculous. Like explaining Rai to people is so ridiculous, but then when you actually read it, like you still get that like hilarious, but you're like, dude, that was just sick. Like, and then like the new Spylock, like, you know, Rye's buddy Lou becoming the new Spylock, and they're showing her as being like, you know, in the old Rye, she was kind of just like, she was almost like a Jubilee type to her, you know, like Rye being like the Wolverine and her being like the Jubilee. Like, she wasn't really all that useful. She was just like a human girl, you know, she's not a jerk to AI, and that's cool or whatever. But Fallen World like made her like almost like a Maria Hill, you know, like she's like,
Oh
yeah, she
yeah.
doesn't have all the fancy powers and stuff, but she's like a confident and competent like woman in the future. And then
Mhm.
like Eternal Warrior showing back up, dude, like the bromance between him and Rye
Yeah.
is amazing. And like the new Geomancer, you know, that was another thing that I was like, that I was kind of iffy on, because you know the ones they've had in the past, like Kay, the one that died in Valiant, like that one. It took me a
Oh,
while to warm up to the idea of another one after her. Before, you know, the girl that the you know, that one that hurt.
yeah,
That's
Kay was like a stab in my heart. Yeah, I can't. I'm still not over that one, really.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard, man. It's hard to let that one go. But to introduce yet another Geomancer, and by the end of the story, like the first appearance, so I didn't really particularly care for too much, but like, you
Mhm.
know, when War Mother shows up and is like, look, either you're going to learn to get
Oh yeah.
busy or you're going to get gone. And she figures, you know, and like that was, and that too, War Mother, dude, I didn't even
Yeah.
expect, like, if you would have told me that he was going to throw her in that, I'd have been like, oh, okay, she'll be like in the background or something, you know, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I got a big gun that talks or whatever, and then that's it.
Right.
But she just shows up out of the blue, is like super essential, helps save the day, like everything about like Dan Abnett really understood what they did with those future Valiant books, and he took them and like blended them all together and like really finally made them like this one coherent world, as opposed to just like a bunch of dystopian stories that were cool and, you know, like self-contained, but you don't really like, if you read like War Mother, you can read War Mother and it never even occur to you that Rye is happening at the same time. You
Oh
know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
True. So true. Yeah.
It's because they're like, yeah, they're on the same Earth, but he's like in space most of the time, and yada yada. And you know, so it's like one of those things that it doesn't even dawn on you while you're reading the two that like these are simultaneous stories. And so like just the level of world building he did in such a small window. And Rye number one was going to be my pick for an honorable mention, but I was like, nah, I'm already gonna number. You know, it kind of just continues what he did in Fallen World anyway. So
Yeah.
um, you know, I figured I would just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna combine them together, and that's they kind of just a bunch of little things stacked up to make it my number one. Um,
Okay.
and if you haven't read it, man, Toyo and Killers and Fallen World and Punk Mambo, and just if we mentioned it tonight and you haven't read it yet, like, what are you doing with your life? Go out and get it, like,
Yeah.
right
And
now.
we've tried
And
not to like do too many spoilers, so all these books that we've talked about, there are still so many surprises in them.
yeah,
Like it's incredible
no
what they've
spoilers.
packed into these stories, really.
Mhm. All right, so that being said, we're gonna close out on our number ones. So what was your number one? Your number.
Yeah, so yeah, because like I said, there were some books that came out towards the end of 19 where we had some spectacular number ones, but also some strong ones earlier in the series too. I thought Dr. Mirage started really strongly with that concept. It just exploded. But ultimately the number one that can't be ignored, that can't be passed up, that you have to buy multiple copies of, Bloodshot number one. It's like that's the number one book that if you're looking at what Valiant number one book from 2019 should I dive into, uh, it's Tim Seeley and Brett Booth's Bloodshot series, and Bloodshot number one was the explosive start to what is still an explosive series. It's just nonstop, and I had the awesome chance to talk to Tim Seeley before we get to issue one's release. And in the interview, he's talking about how, at one point that, you've got Bloodshot like driving a tank and running the barrel into an 18 wheeler and then like dragging it. And he's like, it's all this crazy stuff happening. And I'm thinking, how do you pull all this off? Like, how is it this wild, and it makes sense. But with Brett Booth doing the art and like all like Dollhouse, like you said, that this is a powerful freaking team, and what they pull off in Bloodshot #1, I don't think that it's lost on any of us what it means for Bloodshot and Valiant, because this character is about to explode in popularity. He's getting thrust into mainstream audiences, and they're going to be looking at Valiant Comics for, where can I get more of this character? That's the first thing that people are going to ask, and Valiant is delivering it with Bloodshot #1 in the series. As we come into 2020, it shows just the strength of that issue, that #1, and what it can set up and what it can be. Like, this is definitive Bloodshot. Like, this is, I can't say it any better. This is ultimately like a fundamental Bloodshot book that you have to read. They've touched on greatness here.
Yeah. And this is, I guess I'm kind of cheating because I already kind of did as an honorable mention as far as like my top favorite series. But yeah, I got to do Bloodshot #1 for my
Yeah.
#1 pick for a single issue as well. For literally for all the issues, like all the things that I talked about before, and everything that she mentioned. Like if you've never, I've never like there. It's very rare that you could have an established character like Bloodshot, and be like, look, if you've never read anything from Bloodshot, like.
Yeah.
Just start with this #1 and move forward. Like, trust me, just wait till this runs over because you're barely gonna be able to wrap your mind around it, and then you can go back and get all the other stuff because it comes off that it comes out that strong. Like it's like you're just walking past like a dark alley, and then like Mike Tyson in his prime just like jacks you in the jaw. You know what I'm saying? Like you just don't see it coming. Like Tim Seeley, I love Tim Seeley, man. His Nightwing and all the other stuff that he's done, Hack Slash and stuff like that. Like he's a great writer. And like Brett Booth, like what needs to be said? Like the dude's a legend. Like everybody on that team is just rock solid. And it without trying to repeat myself, but I gotta at this point, like it genuinely shows page after page that those dudes are bringing their A game. I mean, even in, all right, slight spoilers. Even in like, no, never mind. I might Bloodshot #5. Go buy it. You have to just buy it. Go buy it.
Like the greatness of Bloodshot #1 is, as a bit of context, we've got Roku #1 hit. Roku series was awesome. And we have Ride that Fallen World helped build up to, but we also had Visitor #1. All these are great introductions to things that we're going to see in Valiant 2020. But Bloodshot #1, I think, still comes out ahead of the pack just because of how powerful it is for the character.
Exactly. And one thing too, and I got to give him props for this, is that I was a little, not necessarily iffy, but you know how it is when a comic book character gets a movie and they get a new #1 around the same time. It's usually an excuse to retcon a bunch of stuff, to change it, to fit whatever is going to be in the movie. And no shade, because I'm so... Matter of fact, if you haven't seen the new trailer for Bloodshot, you can pause this for a second, go watch it, and come back. And then in the comments and stuff on YouTube, like, let us know what you thought. But the thing is that, like, Tim Seeley and just everybody at Valiant, they're like, we know what we got with Bloodshot, and we know that it's rock solid. We know what Tim Seeley's doing with it, and we're just gonna let him do his thing, and we'll just promote the crap out of both of them, and just let them both be their thing without doing too much mishmashing them together. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
You know what? It was a smart move, because when you go see him, like, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm telling you right now, here's what's gonna happen. People are going to go see Bloodshot. It's going to be awesome. And after that, they're going to be like, well, I need more of that level of like high octane insanity. And then guess what? By the time you see the movie, that comes out in March. So you'll have 7 issues of Tim Seeley Bloodshot that you can go back and be like, bruh! And just like every page as you're flipping through. And then after that, you're going to be like, all right, well then I got to start I got to pick up the definitive collection that they just released. Check it out if you haven't yet. Or like just go, you know what I mean? Harbinger Wars, all this other crazy wild stuff that Bloodshot's done. Like the Bloodshot #1 is just like it's been a long time since a ongoing book has been so perfectly placed with like the perfect team and the direction they want to go with it, and everything
Yeah.
else is just, mwah, it's
Yeah.
just delicious. Like I can, dude, I'll stand on that book all day. Like,
Yeah. It's
hold on, let me
that,
get a pen and paper. I'm just gonna be like,
yeah.
dear Tim.
Yeah.
Except he'd probably return my letters, but you know
Oh,
what I
man,
mean. But like,
yes. It's
oh, that it's
I
so
love
good.
that you brought up the timing really because ultimately I am a trade reader for Valiant. I buy a lot of floppies from them just because they're awesome, but most of my collection are their trades. And I think they're aware of that. I think that they know a lot of their readers like their trades. They have an awesome price on them that keep you coming back for more. But also with Bloodshot, I think any other publisher would have dropped a number one in March or at the end of February, right when, everybody's immediately looking at this character. Valiant's not this. They're not doing that. They have, like you said, now whenever you come out of Bloodshot, you're going to have probably two trades worth of awesome high octane Bloodshot comics that you can just sink your teeth into and really get to know the character. And that's what's going to make you a longtime fan of Valiant. That's going to make you come back for more even after Bloodshot. You're going to say, what else is this company doing? What other stories are going on here?
Yeah,
And love it. Love everything that they do. I think this is part of why I love Valiant so much, that they're in touch with the comics community and people who read comics, and how to get these new readers in and really show them, how amazing the stories are at Valiant. And Bloodshot, I think, is like a such a great way to bring in so many people and really give substance to this character.
yeah, and is like you said, one of the things that I love about it is just like the smartness. Like you said, that by the time, we touched on, when you come out of the movie, you're gonna want some Valiant, man.
Yeah.
And like when you go and you see, you know, like Bloodshot as seen in the movies on like the new trade for the Tim Seeley version, for
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
that's gonna get you. And then like they've always kept like this beautiful aesthetic to their graphic, like all of their graphic novels, all of their trades just look like, even when they're just, you can just see like the sides on the bindings and stuff, you can just see
yes,
the name,
so
like the
good.
color choices, the type, everything they do is like really really great as far as just like as a collector. Because me, even when
Yeah,
I buy the single issues, like dude, I don't care if I have all the issues in Ninjak. You got Ninjak volume 1 for 9.99, bruh. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna grab that. You know why? Because I can let homeboy next door borrow it. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I can be like, look, hey, I got 2 kids. What are you here? Well, maybe not Ninjak, but like something a little bit more chill. Like you guys could Archer and
Teenagers.
Armstrong or something. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But I can let one of them read it while I just read the single issues or whatever the case may be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many smart things. Like
Mm,
that's the difference between like smart business and like just going for a blatant cash grab. Because they could have just done that, just waited
yeah,
till March 1st and then just dropped a new Bloodshot number one the same time as the movie,
right. Like a
and
predictable
it
way
probably
to
would have
do
sold
it.
a bunch of issues. Yeah,
Mm,
like I mean, like let's be real. If any other publisher would have done it, that's probably how they would have done it.
yeah,
But now, like you're gonna have a whole trade, and nothing gets people hooked more than reading a complete story about a character that they're genuinely interested in,
yeah,
especially one that's as good as what Tim Seeley and the gang are doing with Bloodshot. So I think
yeah,
that's an excellent point to go out on.
yeah,
2019 was an amazing year. 2020 already a great year. Uh, just so you know, let's get the hype build up. We're going to be coming at you with a bonus episode, Quantum and Woody special. I'm thinking of a
yeah,
cool tagline for it, but you guys just be getting ready for it. All right. Speaking of
yeah.
hot freshness for some introducing new people to introducing some new fans to a character, Quantum and Woody. We're going to be
Clang.
doing pretty much all things. Just bang, yeah, just straight up playing goodness.
Yep.
So be looking for that. The new Bloodshot trailer's out. Check that out too. And get on Amazon, get on ValiantEntertainment.com, whatever you got to do, and start snatching some stuff up because 2019 is loaded with some amazing stuff from Valiant, and they're just keeping it going in 2020. All right. So Until next time, stay valiant and peace.